Good morning, and good morning, guys. Welcome to another fabulous episode of Exit Strategies Radio Show. If this is your first time listening to this show, I want y'all to buckle up. I want y'all to get your pen and paper. I want you all to get ready because we have this thing that we say here, and we don't just say it, we mean it, which is our mission here is very simple at Exit Strategies Radio Show. It is to empower our community through financial literacy and real estate education, guys. We're legacy building. For those of you who may be watching me, y'all see me with my hands. I'm over here. I'm like patty cake, baker's man, because we're going to bake you some money as fast as we can over here. That's what we're going to do here on this show today. So, guys, we are not going to take much time today away from our guests, but I do, and I would be remiss if I did not say to our listeners, thank you guys for continuing this mission with us. Thank you guys for listening. Thank you for being a part of the show and being our family. Because, guys, we have been bringing it to you, and we have been bringing the guests to you to help you to get to that next level. And many of you are taking the steps. So when I bump into you, when I see you, and I hear from you in the streets, I know that this content is helpful to you and that you guys are employing it. So we want to make sure that we continue to give it to you so you can get it done. So today is no different, guys. We are very fortunate to have with us a real estate investor. He is a real estate agent broker with us today, so he's going to give it to you. So we have none other than Christian Bachelder with the One Brokerage. Christian, how are you doing today?
Pretty good. Awesome to be here. What an intro, man. I love what you're about. Love what this show does for the listeners. So excited to be a part of it. Appreciate you having me.
Well, I appreciate you taking the time. I know you're a busy guy. So Christian, if you do not mind, for our listeners, give them a snippet, if you will, of who you are and what it is that you do.
Yeah, absolutely. First and foremost, like most people probably listening, like yourself, I would define myself as an investor first and foremost, but in close second would be an advisor, right? Okay. Advisor and a guide. I co-started with David Green of the Bigger Pockets podcast, the One Brokerage. That's our lending company. I am also on top of that a real estate broker and an insurance broker. So kind of just believing that, if we can bring the status quo of services in this industry a little bit higher, as you probably know, unfortunately, 90% of realtors and lenders and insurance agents and everybody in this industry just aren't very good, and they're getting the wrong advice, they're getting the wrong guidance, and that, trickles down to the clients that they represent, right? And there are a few people that are pushing the industry forward and making sure people are getting the right guidance and ultimately preaching financial literacy in America. And unfortunately, I think it's underserved and needs more people with that mindset.
That is very fair. And I agree with you wholeheartedly about that. Many are not committed, and many through their work are only focused on a very small portion of the industry, which is the end part. We don't focus on the people that we serve and all that stuff. And I ain't going to preach or get on that day to day. But what I will say is, Christian, thank you for saying that. Absolutely. So, Christian, you have a history with this industry that goes back for quite some time. So, obviously everything that you give us today is going to be based upon experiences and so forth and so on. But I'm going to ask you this one, because I'm pretty sure this is something that you probably get very often. Someone who's looking to get started, first thing that they should do is what?
That's a good question. And one that we end up answering a lot. I practice this way of how I analyze. For me, it would be a client, but for, a borrower or listener, this could be their situation, right? And I put people into like 4 main brackets, right? I basically just take them down the list. Number 1, they're all going to rotate around skills and money. Okay. Number 1, do you have skills and no money? We need to target a subset of that skills that can lead to income. Right. Okay. So that could be somebody who's personable, somebody who has character, somebody who communicates well would be very good, obviously, as a salesman. Right. Mm-hmm. That would be a real estate agent, a loan officer, a tech sales, medical sales, whatever the case is. And typically those industries have a lower barrier to entry because it is a lot more dependent on your skills. Right. Yeah. It's you can't really teach somebody how to talk and how to communicate effectively. Mm-hmm. But that doesn't matter if you don't have that. Right. There's other factors here. Number 2, do you have money and no skills? It's a decent position to be in. I'd question how you got them, maybe inheritance, an insurance claim, the lottery, whatever the case is. If you're part of that subsector, it's all about guidance. It's all about, since you don't have the skills or the knowledge, and this isn't saying somebody's completely unskilled. This is, hey, do you have a skill that will allow you to succeed in investing, right? An ability to analyze numbers, an ability to, target certain markets, an ability to prospect good deals, right? Things like that, right? Those are the skills that I'm referring to. But if you have money, you can get into it. You just have to make sure that you're compensating for your lack of, decision-making, your lack of guidance, all those other categories, right? My third category is you got money and skills. That's the people who are in the best case. My goal is to get all four of these categories into that class. I can bring you the skills. I can bring you the knowledge, the guidance, people like yourself, people like this podcast, every bigger pockets, everything, right? Those are what you need to surround yourself in to get into this category, right? And then the last category is people with no money, no skills.
Mm-hmm.
That's unfortunately where the vast majority of the population finds themselves.
Mm-hmm.
If I'm just being honest, it's people who, work in the day-to-day, pay stub to pay stub, and they don't have an objectively definable skill that allows them to succeed in life. You're doing a job. I mean, you have obviously some substantive skills, but for those people, being that that's probably the majority of the population, I would say there needs to be an active, concentrated effort into finding what I call moments of arbitrage in life. So I did one recently. There was a client of ours who was an LVN. That's basically one step under an RN. It's a licensed vocational nurse, right?
Okay.
It's somebody who maybe doesn't have the registered nursing, license or degree or whatever it takes to get there. So they're making, a nurse's salary, but on the lower end of it. But after doing a deep dive in her finances, I saw that she had 2 cars for a single girl.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
She had her fun weekend car, and then she had her daily. And I was like, okay, that's interesting. I asked her how many days a week she works, and she worked 4 12-hour shifts a week, between 3 and 4. So she had 3 to 4 days not working.
Yeah.
And she had 2 cars. So I said, hey, how much would you need for a down payment? And we ran it through, a $300,000 purchase for a primary, which is what her income roughly allowed her for. She need about, FHA, 3.5% down. Let's call it $10,000 to $12,000. Right?
Okay.
Let's figure out a plan to save you $1,000 a month.
Yep.
What's your car payment? Well, her second car payment was $450 a month. Okay. Let's imagine, let's not just go to sell it, because that is an asset we might be able to arbitrage. Her fun car ended up being it was an older Audi SUV. Just what her fun car was, I guess. It's funny, I typed it into Turo. If you're familiar with Turo, it's a car rental. It's a car rental app. And I'm like, so how many days a week do you realistically drive this car? And she said, well, maybe one. Maybe if I go on a date, I drive my nice car, or maybe if I go out with family, I drive my nice car. I'm like, okay, well, what if we rented it out the other 6 days of the week?
Uh-huh.
Her car was renting for about $120 a day. Let's just assume you rent it out for like 15 days, maybe even 12 days out of the month. So we just completely wiped out your car payment.
Yeah.
Right? So now we're getting interesting. Okay, so now $450 a month times 12. We're already halfway to our down payment. Okay. Now, what do you do in your other 3 or 4 days of the week? Well, I rest because I'm tired after 12-hour shifts. Of course. What if I tell you can rest for 2 days a week? And the other 2 out of the 4 need to be dedicated towards either learning a skill or getting money.
Okay.
Something super simple. We said, hey, what if you take those 2 days out of your week and you go to the most expensive area around you and DoorDash for 2 days, or Uber for 2 days? But go to the expensive area where they tip well. Right? And I watched this girl follow through 12 months. And by the end of 12 months, I kid you not, she had the money for a down payment, and she now owns a property. So it's like, and that was somebody that you define as no money. She had nothing in her savings account, and she had a skill. She was a form of a nurse, but it wasn't a skill that immediately led to an increase in income. Right. But in 12 months of guidance and putting herself in the right situation led to her finding arbitrage opportunities in her life of both 2 cars. There's an arbitrage opportunity there to make money, and time arbitrage. There's a time opportunity there for the 4 days a week you have off. Let's rest for 2. Let's work for the other 2. Now you're like every other American working 5 days a week, but you're making a little bit extra money on the side, but just live on your LVN salary because you've already proven you can do that, right? Things like that. It takes sometimes an external eye for somebody to peer into your financial situation and see, hey, what's going on here? What's going on here? And to her, it was just like, oh, I just have 2 cars. Doesn't everybody have 2 cars?
Mm-hmm.
No, not usually, right?
Mm-hmm.
But it's not something that immediately hits someone if they're not surrounding themselves with good advice, good guidance, good mentorship, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that's ultimately, I mean, I'm a broker, right? I mean, that's not my job. I didn't charge for that service, but that allowed her to eventually utilize my services and put her in a better financial position than when she met me, which is everything in real estate. That's why you got to, I'm so big in 2023, my big push for a lot of people who aren't able to qualify with rates or down payments or financial hardships, whatever it is. If you take this time where everybody else is complaining that nothing's possible, and you go and surround yourself with the same type of like obsessive financial pursuits from people like myself, people like you, people like, David Green on Bigger Pockets, whoever, that's going to lead to you in 2, 3, 4 years. You're going to look back and say, wow, that was the best decision I've ever made, because now I got 1, 2, 3 houses. I got another car. I got more income streams. And it's just because of that pursuit. And
so, that's all.
Man.
So that all, Christian, speaks to what we talk about on this show a lot, is about mindset, about having, so you I mean, that's interesting. But what you did was you introduced your mindset, and in turn motivated someone who, quote unquote, didn't have the money, didn't have, additional skill, and then in turn assisted them in getting to that next level, which is massive. So, man, that's some good work right there, man. I love to hear stuff like that, man.
Yeah, appreciate that. I mean, that's the biggest thing. It's in this industry specifically, and probably a lot of others, but in real estate, in investments, in financial pursuits, you're really only, I mean, even myself, you're only as strong as your network. If you don't have a good agent, if you don't have once you have a rental property, a property manager or a maintenance guy or whatever, I mean, I could fill in the blank with 100 different people, but if one of those people fail, I mean, what if your maintenance guy fails? And you own if you own a short-term rental and a pipe bursts? What if your maintenance guy sucks and he says, oh, I can't get to your house for 3 months? Well, your bad relationship with your maintenance guy now costs you 3 months of short-term rental income that could be thousands, right? And that you didn't plug into your chart or whatever. If you were working with a regular agent or a regular lender, they wouldn't have told you, hey, this is one of the most important concepts. So, I mean, it's just that it's kind of this relentless, like almost obsessive pursuit of surrounding yourself with similarly minded people. I mean, I'm a direct show of that. I mean, I grew up in a family that nobody owned a home. Nobody owned a business. Nobody was successful. I mean, they're, successful in the W-2 world, right?
Yeah.
But nobody was building generational wealth. Nobody was building, the things that I can now. And it's because I got a little taste of like, oh my gosh, the information that these people can share, man, this opportunities that they provide. And I just became obsessed with it, to be honest. And there's a lot worse things to be obsessed over, right?
Do you want something more meaningful moments, opportunities, deeper relationships, and memorable experiences? Do you want to make a difference? If you said yes, a career in real estate could be the opportunity you're looking for. Guiding people through one of the most important decisions they'll ever make, the purchase or sale of their home, can be both rewarding and lucrative. Exit Realty's revolutionary compensation model, training, and technology provide you with the tools you need to start and build your successful real estate career. Call me today, Robin Collins, ROBYN Collins with Red Robin Homes at 843-557-5003. Again, that's 843-557-5003. Or visit me at redrobinhomes.com/join-exit and make your exit today.
So let's switch this up a little bit. You just hit us with something that is it's not necessarily, I won't say a unique story, but it's fundamental. And I know we encounter this kind of stuff a lot. So let's switch this over a little bit for someone who is maybe on, similar question for someone who's looking to start with investing on investment property. What do they need to keep in mind as they approach that side of the fence?
Absolutely. Number one, I feel people need to find, why are they investing? Right. Okay. So the same way, I'm very big on like bracketing people because I don't believe that the same advice corresponds to everybody. Right. So for instance, a lot of people invest for cash flow. They want to exit a W-2. There's nothing wrong with that. I would say that is difficult to do, right? It's difficult to fully replace active income with passive income because passive income is active, right? For people who own real estate, it's tough until you have economies of scale to really truly make something passive. But a lot of people have a desire to pursue real estate. I want my job to be real estate. That's good. Cool. You want to do real estate instead of your W-2. That's fine. Some people buy for retirement planning, right? I want income in my retirement. Okay. Some people buy for wanting generational wealth. I bring all these up because this is what determines not only the advice that someone like myself would give, but it determines your strategy into acquiring properties. If you're looking more long-term and you love your job and like, I don't really want to leave, I don't want to quit, I want to work out my working years, but I'd love to subsidize a little bit. That means you may not be as in need of like that relentless like cash flow, right? You may be building some appreciation over time. You may want, to pay down some principal and just have that property kind of break even, right? Most people probably land in that cash flow bucket though. So, if that's the case, I'd say first step to answer your question, this is a long answer, would be number one, getting with a lender, having them understand your situation and getting a solid pre-approval. And if you don't qualify, go back to the first part of our conversation. We got to find ways to qualify you, money or skills, right? But assuming we can get you to that point, that pre-approval in a relationship with the lender, and this is not a pitch for myself. I don't care who you use for lending. If you use me, cool. If you use somebody else, awesome. Find a lender that you like, that resonates with what you're trying to build and what you're trying to grow with, and then go do that same thing and form a realtor partnership. Somebody who understands what you're looking for, something who can help you target property, somebody who's familiar with the area and preferably owns property themselves, right? Because they've done it, right? I always use the analogy, would you go to the BMW dealership and trust the BMW manager driving a Mercedes? Right? If he's pitching you a BMW and this is the best car for this price and all the crud that he's going to throw at you, right? But then he's coming to work in an S-Class. What's going on there, right? You would think if you love what you're selling so much, you should be the one driving it, right? But yeah, and once again, I don't want to just take the cop out of surrounding yourself with good advice, but man, it's like having a cheat code. If you can get with people who will just guide you effectively when you're new to the industry, your first thing has got to be, before finding properties, before finding anything, find people. It's got to be find people. And those people will help you find opportunity.
And that's real. I say this thing, Christian, to my agents. I mean, I don't say it as much as I used to, but I still say it. And used to say it a lot. But people buy people before they buy product. Oftentimes people want to sell something to someone, before they are real with people. Meaning you fundamentally. If you don't care about people know that. Oh, yeah. You know what I'm saying? They know that. Yeah. It don't matter how much you know this, that, and the third. If you legitimately have no interest in seeing them succeed with the information that you give them, people know that. And 100%. In turn, why should they listen to you? So I don't want to keep you on that. So let's continue on this vein on investing. There's so many different models and people can do so many different things with real property and investing. What is the model that you favor? I won't say it's the only one you do, but what is the one that you favor?
Yeah, that's a good question. I'll answer in two parts.
Okay.
Number one is the asset class that I target.
Okay.
I love short-term rentals. I love vacation markets. I love providing people an experience. I'm not all for the Airbnbs buying up every house on the block of mom's neighbor, right? Okay. I don't really believe they belong in those sectors. There could be some, in vacation markets, but I'm big on like vacation destinations, places near the beach, places in the mountains, places on the lake, right? I resonate with that a lot because I believe my personal investing strategy includes buy what you know and buy what you love, and this isn't for everybody, right? A lot of people want the fourplex in downtown, that you would never live in, but produces good cash flow. That's great. There's nothing wrong with that. This is just me personally. I've had retreats from my company, the One Brokerage, where we've gone and stayed in a couple of the properties that I bought. That's like incredible to me that I can go provide my guys an opportunity. Like, hey, great, we hit our sales goals this quarter. Let's go take a trip to the Smoky Mountains in Tennessee. right? We stay in this big, amazing cabin. We have a great time. We go out on the lake. We go on hikes. Like, that's really cool to me, right? That's an added benefit of being able to buy that type of asset class. So that's number one, amenities, experiences for people. But the overall greater strategy that I'm using is one that's a little bit in depth here. So I'm going to break it down as well as I can. And kind of fun announcement. This is going to be the concept I'm actually undergoing writing a book right now.
Okay.
And it's going to be titled it's going to be titled One House a Year, which is this investment strategy that I've laid out. And this could be for that LVN that we just talked about before. This could be something that she can implement, right? This could be something that absolutely anybody, if you plan instead of a 401k, instead of an IRA, instead of whatever else, right? That the country has told you is like the tried and true ways for retirement. Well, I think I got something a little better. Okay. So my idea is pick your asset class. If it's short-term rentals like mine, if it's the fourplex in downtown, if it's whoever it is, even if it's a $50,000 house, if it's a $100,000 house, it doesn't matter. If you can consistently buy one house a year within your budget on 30-year fixed mortgages, okay? I want you to run through the possibility of buying one. Let's say you buy a $200,000 house every single year. 200, 200, 200, 200. That one you buy in year one, in 30 years will be paid off. Assuming you keep it and you can refinance along the way, whatever the case is, let's plan for a 30-year payoff though. Let's say you're 25 and you start this, you want to retire at 55. It's the normal retirement age. You retire your first year 55, and let's say you don't have any 401k, you don't have an IRA, you don't have anything else. You may have some Social Security, whatever. That first house that's worth $200,000 has appreciated to probably $300,000, $400,000, $500,000 now. Let's assume no appreciation. Let's take that out of the ballpark. Let's just say we have 200. The rents have probably gone up from $2,000 a month. Now they're $3,000, $4,000, $5,000 a month. But let's not assume that.
Okay.
So I'm taking all these assumptions out because people hate the assumption game with real estate, right? Oh, you're just depending on appreciation. No, let's not take any of that. I'm going to take that $200,000 asset and I'm just going to do a cash out refinance. Okay. And I'm going to take that. Now it's paid off. So we'll go and get $150,000 out on a 30-year fixed new one that the rents will cover. So that $2,000 in rent will cover your $1,500 payment, whatever it's going to be. And while that I don't want to say to the layman, but to the person who's not understanding this concept may just hear, oh, you're just taking more debt in your retirement. That's not a strategy. Well, no, that asset just produced you $150,000 in retirement income in your first year. Best part, it's not taxed. Show me a 401k that is going to distribute you $150,000 the moment you retire, untaxed, that will also pay for itself on appreciating rents on an appreciated asset class with all the tax benefits that real estate gives. So if I start adding back all these other things that I stripped away, now you have $150,000 in first year retirement plus tax savings plus appreciation. In reality, that $150,000 was probably more like a $300,000 or $400,000 cash out with the appreciation, right? But this is where it gets better. If you bought one a year, your second year of retirement, the house you bought in year two is now paid off.
Yeah.
You have cash flow opportunity there again. So now every year of retirement, you can imagine if I bought a house a year, even if they're $100,000, I'm creating hundreds of thousands of dollars a year in income in retirement. And if you can't go enjoy your retirement on $400,000 a year in income, go get some hobbies, right? Because that's a hell of a retirement for $400K in tax-free income every year, plus having appreciation, plus having generational wealth, because these are able to pass down to your kids, plus being able to 1031 and do all the tax-deferred stuff that real estate allows you to do too. Like, that's pretty freaking cool, It
is. And that's how this thing here, man, gets to be. And so, Christian, I'm over here in my head. I ain't even done the math yet. I'm just enjoying getting a $150 check every year because to that point, every year it's okay. Well, let's cash out. Boom, here come our money. Let's go do whatever we want to do. Now, if I work for 30 years somewhere, I probably got a retirement there too. I get to, if we got Social Security, that's a whole nother question.
Exactly. Yeah, it may not be there in 30 years.
Yeah, that may not be there. But we factor that in the 60s. Man, we're talking about having $200,000 a year income. You know what I'm saying? Just by simply doing this, every year, and the wealth doesn't stop because we never sold the properties.
100%.
We just refinanced, took some money out of them, and we leave them for the next generation for them to continue adding on. And pretty soon, 2-3 generations down the road, your children's children is cashing out $300,000 a year between all their money. And that's how they're living. They're living at $300,000 a year, which allows them to go make other investments, to add to, and all that stuff, which is everything, man, that we've been talking about. Man.
And I mean, you just imagine, I mean, I grew up in a family that I shared a little bit, like none of this was the mindset, right? But I'm just imagining if I got a head start in life with, you know, inheriting 30 houses, it's like, I'm going to shake your hand and I'm going to say, congratulations, I won the game of life, right? Like 30 houses, no matter where they are, if they're paid off or they're leveraged and they're cash flowing, or even if they're breaking even and you have all that equity, like you kind of like already cheated, like you won, like you started with the cheat code, right? And I mean, if people are thinking generational wealth and they're considering their kids' stability and you're worried about where the economy is going to go, I don't care where the economy goes. If your kids are inheriting 30 houses, they're going to be fine. You know, I don't care where we go as a nation. Real property is always going to have value because it's tied to the most basic human necessity, housing. Yes. The most basic human necessity is a roof and 4 walls. That's it. I mean, and water, I guess. You need water, right? Yeah. Which comes with a house, you know? Yeah. So it's like, if you can tie what you're, you know, who knows where the dollar is going to go? Who knows where cryptocurrency is going to go, or stocks, or, you know, Apple may not be a company in 30 years if they make a string of wrong decisions. Who knows, right? Companies come and go, countries come and go, but like, you can't get rid of land. It kind of stays here. And man, if you can tie the success and the future endeavors of your kids and their kids to the most basic human necessity, plus it's the most beneficial and advantageous way to, in the tax code in America, the way that we currently stand, man, it's so difficult for me to just hear everybody say, oh, well, I'm just dumping the max contribution into my 401k every year. I'm like, okay, but there may be an alternative here, right? Like, hear me out. You know, if we just do this small strategy, and just like my LVN client, we're already planning her second purchase because this was about a year ago, right? So she's gearing up for round 2. And of course, you know, for anybody who bought, you know, in 2020, 2021, you got a little bit of a shortcut because we had that 40-50% appreciation. You know, even if we come down 15% this year, you're still up 30, right? And if you apply that in, maybe you can start buying a house every, you know, 2 houses a year, and you kind of jumpstart it a little bit. So man, it's something that I get excited about, and it's something that I just wish, you know, I wish there was a finance class taught in my high school, man.
But you know, and it's interesting, for all the information that's out there, all the mindsets and all the people like you, Christian, who are forward thinking, who are trying to scream this from the mountaintop to the masses, people don't listen, and they miss these opportunities because they close their eyes, they shut their ears, they tune this out because they're operating right here versus here. Yeah. So thank you for that. So Christian, we have quickly gotten to, because I knew we was going to have a good time, man. I knew we have quickly gotten to, you know, the end of our show. How can our listeners reach you? What's your contact information?
Yeah, obviously, in just terms of getting a loan, company's called The One Brokerage. So theonebrokerage.com, all spelled out, is our website. My email directly is christian@theonebrokerage.com. Pretty straightforward. I think I'm on social media as The One Broker with underscores. So _1_broker. And I'm findable on Bigger Pockets. If you just search my name, I'm super easy to find. But reach out. I mean, I'm happy to help anybody that comes our way, even if it's just, you know, we don't charge for like an application, right? Like, come talk to us, get our advice, get our guidance. Even if you decide to go somewhere else, no hard feelings. But I'm all about, as I shared in the show, man, getting in the right circles and getting the right guidance is the shortcut. It's the cheat codes to success. And let us help. If we're that right guidance for you, reach out. Let us help you.
So Christian, I've been asking all of our guests, you are going to get this question. I want your mic drop answer. I want the one that, you know, if I was to ask you stand on the stage after you finish, you just let the mic fall on the floor, because that's it. What one nugget can you give our listeners today that if you would have had this or known this in the very beginning, it would increase? Now, granted, where you got to and where you're going, man, is very defining, man. You're killing it. But what would have expedited that process for you if you would have known that bit of information back yonder when?
No, man. Say the opportunity that you hear people talk about on these podcasts is not unobtainable. When I was young, I thought it was unobtainable. I thought you had to have money to start. You had to have a cheat code. You had to have something. But the amount of information and progress that I've made as a person, as an investor, as a guide, it's not as far away as you think. It's not this pipe dream pie in the sky of owning real estate. It's not this pipe dream of becoming a millionaire. Like a millionaire is like 3 good decisions away nowadays. Like that's how quickly stuff can change in this economy, in this industry, the way the tax code's written, man, 3 right decisions.
3 right decisions. So that's interesting. You should say that. So I'm going to give you something, Christian. And I forgot where I picked this up some years ago, but I picked this up some years ago that the average millionaire goes broke 3 times. That's how they get to the million.
At least for sure.
Because they fail forward.
Yeah.
So it is interesting that you should frame this from the positive. You know, it's either glass half empty or half full. So you frame this from the half full perspective of you're 3 decisions away.
Well, I'll tell you, and I know we're close finishing up here. Let me end on this. When I say a right decision, it doesn't mean that doesn't have to be a failure or quitting, right? Before I got into real estate, I was in a W-2 situation. I was a chemical engineer, right? I went to UC Berkeley. I got a really highly touted degree and I hated it. Hated it. I'm like, oh man, this ceiling that I feel like I'm in, I got to listen to my manager every day. This sucks. I don't want anything to do with this. So I quit. Like that's a failure. I went and got a 4-year degree, paid a bunch of money, went in debt, like did all the stuff that like was told to me is the right thing to do. And I quit. I failed. That was 1 right decision on my way to 3 to becoming a millionaire. And that at the time, it felt like I failed. My family was saying, what are you doing? You're giving up a career that you did all this work in. But man, I realized that I was in that bracket of people with no money skills, right? And I had the skills of talking to people and advising people and understanding financials because I had that background in numbers and math and engineering. And man, quitting right there was the first good decision probably that I had made in my life, which is a weird way to frame quitting. But just like you said, average millionaire fails 3 times. I can't agree more with that.
That is impressive, man. That's impressive. Christian, thank you so much for taking time to be with us on the show today. I really appreciate it. Thank you for being a part of the Exit Strategies radio show family. To our listeners, guys, to our listeners, we've been bringing it to you. This one here, we drop right here at your doorstep. Please open the door. Please pick up the package and please take it inside and do something with it to impact your family positively going forward. Y'all know how I feel. Y'all know what I say. I'm going to put the 2 things together and I'm going to deliver it to you this way. I love you. I love you. I love you. And we're going to see you guys out there in those streets.